First Contact's bitter truth. The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, transmitted simultaneously to every communications device on Earth. The Hegemony, a vast coalition of spacefaring species, had been watching humanity for decades. Their transmission, delivered in perfect English, carried both confidence and contempt. "Your species has caught our attention." The message began, its artificial translation carrying undertones of amusement. "Your primitive attempts at space travel have been entertaining. The Hegemony offers you a choice. Accept your place as a protectorate species, or face immediate technological containment." In the depths of No-Ray's command center, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the message replay for the 20th time. Her eyes weren't on the main holographic display, but on the subtle variations in the signal's quantum signature. Something wasn't right. The transmission's complexity suggested capabilities far beyond what the Hegemony wanted Earth to believe they possessed. "They're lying," she announced, breaking the tense silence. "The signal structure, it's not just a message. They're actively scanning our response patterns, analyzing our technology in real time." General Marcus Rodriguez leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the displays. "Explain it to me like I'm not a quantum physicist, Doctor." "They're not just introducing themselves." Sarah pulled up a complex waveform analysis. "They're conducting an invasion before firing a single shot. This transmission is mapping every digital network on Earth, probing our defenses, analyzing our response capabilities. It's the most sophisticated cyber reconnaissance I've ever seen." As if confirming her analysis, a second signal cut through Earth's communications. This one was different, fragmented, desperate, and not meant for human receivers. The quantum arrays Sarah had secretly installed 6 months ago captured it perfectly. A conversation between Hegemony ships in high orbit. The primitives remain unaware. The translated signal read, "Containment protocols are ready. Once they accept protectorate status, the biomass conversion can begin. Standard procedure, just like the Arcturus civilization." Sarah's blood ran cold. Her quantum arrays had picked up echoes of similar signals over the past year, fragments of communications from distant stars. She had thought they were natural phenomena. Now she understood. They were the death screams of other civilizations. "Get me the Security Council," General Rodriguez barked, "and contact every major tech company and research institution. Quietly. We need to move to Phase Omega." Phase Omega was a theoretical response to hostile First Contact, a plan so secret that only a handful of people knew of its existence. It had been developed not by governments, but by a loose coalition of scientists, engineers, and military strategists who had seen this moment coming. Within hours, the world's leadership had convened in a secure quantum-encrypted conference. The Hegemony's true message was clear. Earth wasn't being offered membership. It was being offered the chance to surrender before being harvested. What the Hegemony didn't know was that humanity had not been idle. Hidden in underground facilities, scattered across the globe, Project Aurora had been preparing for this moment. Not with traditional weapons or shields, but with something far more powerful: understanding. Dr. Chen's team had spent years studying quantum echoes from deep space, learning the fundamental principles behind advanced civilizations' technology. They hadn't built warships. They had built something far more dangerous: knowledge. "We have 72 hours, Sarah explained to the assembled leaders. "That's how long their algorithms will take to complete their analysis of our visible technology. They're expecting to find a primitive species barely able to reach our own moon. Instead, we're going to show them exactly what they expect to see." The plan was audacious. While the world governments appeared to debate the Hegemony's offer, the real work would happen in the shadows. Every visible piece of advanced technology would be hidden, replaced with convincing decoys. Earth would appear exactly as vulnerable as the Hegemony believed. But beneath this carefully constructed facade, humanity would prepare its true response. The quantum network Sarah had built wasn't just for listening. It was the foundation of a defense system unlike anything the Hegemony had encountered. As the hours ticked by, A new signal arrived, this one from a source that shocked even Sarah. The quantum signature was unlike anything in the Hegemony's transmissions. It carried a simple message. We are the remnant. We survived their harvest. We can help you survive too. But you must be willing to sacrifice everything you think you know about the universe. The message came with a gift. Technical specifications for the Hegemony's biomass conversion systems, and more importantly, their weaknesses. The remnant, it seemed, had been waiting for a species with the right combination of technological understanding and determination to resist. As Sarah decoded the remnant's data, she realized why Earth had been chosen. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't our technology. It was our ability to understand and adapt to new paradigms. The Hegemony's power was based on technological superiority, but they had become stagnant, relying on the same strategies that had worked for millennia. We don't need to match their firepower, Sarah explained to the Emergency Council. We need to change the rules of engagement entirely. And thanks to the remnant's data, I know exactly how to do it. The plan they formed would reshape the future of human civilization. But first, they had to survive. As the deadline for Earth's response approached, humanity prepared for a war unlike any in history. Not a war of ships and weapons, but a war of information and understanding. The Hegemony wanted Earth to kneel. Instead, they would learn why humanity had survived every catastrophe in its history. We don't just adapt, we transform. And in 72 hours, the Hegemony would learn the cost of underestimating a species that had turned survival into an art form. As the first part of their plan went into action, Sarah looked at the quantum display one last time. The Hegemony ships hung in orbit, their superior technology scanning Earth for signs of resistance. They would find exactly what they expected, a primitive civilization ready for harvest. Sarah smiled. Sometimes, the most dangerous predator was the one that looked like prey. The silent preparation. Deep beneath the Atacama Desert, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Dr. James Kenzo watched his quantum processors simulate another failure. It was the 47th simulation that night, but he barely noticed the time. When you're trying to save humanity, sleep becomes optional. Run it again, he muttered to his AI assistant, ARIA. Adjust the phase variance by 0.03 and recalculate the entanglement patterns. The holographic display flickered, showing streams of data that would have looked like nonsense to anyone but him and a handful of others worldwide. Each simulation represented a potential countermeasure against the Hegemony's biomass conversion technology, based on the remnant's data. Dr. Kenzo, ARIA's calm voice interrupted his concentration. Dr. Chen is requesting access to Lab 7. Sarah Chen's arrival wasn't a surprise. After her discovery of the Hegemony's true intentions, she'd been coordinating with research teams worldwide. What surprised James was the person with her, a tall, silver-haired woman he'd never seen before. This is Dr. Elena Volkov. Sarah introduced them. She's been running Project Mirror in Siberia. Elena, meet James Kenzo, our quantum defense architect. Elena didn't waste time with pleasantries. Your simulations are failing because you're thinking in three-dimensional space. The Hegemony's convergent technology operates on 11 dimensions. Show me your latest results. James pulled up the data, and Elena immediately began making adjustments. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface with practiced ease. There. Watch what happens when we introduce quantum mirroring across dimensional boundaries. The simulation ran again. This time, instead of failure, they watched as the virtual representation of a Hegemony conversion beam reflected back on itself, creating a cascade of energy that disabled the emitting system. How did you? James started. The remnant's data wasn't complete, Elena explained. But in Russia, we found something in the Tunguska crater. Technology that's been waiting there since 1908. The remnant didn't just send us data. They've been preparing Earth for this moment for over a century. Sarah nodded. That's not all. Show him, Elena. Elena pulled out a small device, no larger than a coin. We reversed engineered this from the Tunguska artifacts. It's a quantum phase inverter, small enough to hide from the hegemony scans, powerful enough to disable their largest ships when activated in sequence. The problem, Sarah added, is that we need to get them close enough to the hegemony ships without being detected. That's where your work comes in, James. James understood immediately. His quantum camouflage research, combined with Elena's inverters, could give Earth a fighting chance. But they needed more than just technology. They needed a strategy that the hegemony wouldn't expect. Over the next weeks, as the world's governments publicly debated the hegemony's offer, a shadow operation unfolded. Thousands of quantum inverters were manufactured in secret facilities worldwide. Civilian satellites were quietly replaced with dual-purpose versions, capable of both their stated functions and serving as deployment platforms for the inverters. But the most ambitious part of the plan came from an unexpected source. Dr. Aisha Rahman, a theoretical physicist from Pakistan, discovered that the quantum inverters could be linked into a network, creating what she called a dimensional mesh. When activated, the mesh would not only protect Earth, but could potentially cut off the hegemony ships from their own dimension, stranding them in normal space. It's not without risks. Aisha explained during a secure conference. If the timing isn't perfect, if even one node in the mesh fails, the dimensional feedback could tear holes in spacetime itself. What would happen then? James asked. Best case, the holes seal themselves naturally. Worst case, we create quantum singularities that swallow both Earth and the hegemony fleet. Despite the risks, the plan moved forward. They had no choice. The hegemony's deadline approached, and their ships had begun moving into position around Earth. Surveillance showed them preparing their conversion facilities, confident in their superiority. What they didn't see was the network of quantum inverters being positioned throughout the solar system. They didn't detect the dimensional mesh slowly taking shape, disguised as normal space debris and malfunctioning satellites. And most importantly, they didn't realize that every scan they performed of Earth's defenses was being analyzed, their own technology studied and countered. In orbital shipyards that appeared to be building primitive defense platforms, humanity's real weapons took shape, not warships or missiles, but devices that could manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. Each one was designed to appear as primitive as possible, while housing technology that even the hegemony hadn't mastered. The key to the plan was timing. The dimensional mesh had to be activated simultaneously at thousands of points, creating a cascade effect that would trap the hegemony fleet. A single mistake would doom the entire operation. As the final preparations were made, Dr. Chen received another transmission from the remnant. Be warned, the hegemony has harvested 1,000 worlds. They have never failed, but they have also never faced a species that could see beyond the dimensions they know. You have one chance. Make it count. The message ended with a final piece of data, the complete quantum signature of the hegemony's flagship. With this, they could target their counterattack perfectly. But it also meant the remnant had sacrificed themselves to get this information. Their transmission source had been detected by the hegemony, and the quantum echoes carried the unmistakable signature of a civilization's final moments. As humanity prepared for its greatest test, James looked at the quantum display showing Earth's apparent defenses, primitive missiles, basic energy shields, and rudimentary space fighters. The hegemony would see exactly what they expected: a civilization ready for harvest. They wouldn't realize their mistake until it was too late. The deception of weakness. Admiral Zextel of the hegemony's first harvest fleet stood on his command deck, mandibles clicking in satisfaction as he watched Earth's delegation approach his flagship. The primitive shuttle's engines pulsed irregularly, its hull barely containing the radioactive reactor inside. Such inefficient design, such waste of resources. It was almost painful to watch. "My lord," his second-in-command reported, "the humans have begun deactivating their defensive platforms as agreed. Our scans confirm they're powering down their weapon systems." Excellent. Zextel's inner eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of pleasure in his species. Prepare the conversion chambers. This harvest will be particularly efficient. What Zextal couldn't know was that inside the approaching shuttle, Dr. Sarah Chen was watching her own displays with equal satisfaction. Every scan from the hegemony ships was being absorbed, analyzed, and fed into the quantum mesh network. Each probe they sent was revealing more about their technological weaknesses. Status report, she subvocalized, the quantum communicator embedded in her jaw transmitting to the hidden command center beneath the Atacama. Mesh stability at 97%. James Kenzo's voice replied in her mind. Elena's team has the inverters in position. Aisha reports the dimensional calculations are locked in. We're ready. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The shuttle's apparent crudeness was itself a masterpiece of deception. Its radioactive reactor was actually a quantum field generator, designed to appear as primitive nuclear technology to the hegemony scanners. Every piece of equipment they carried was carefully crafted to reinforce the image of a civilization barely capable of spaceflight. The hegemony's flagship opened its docking bay, the massive doors parting like the maw of some ancient sea creature. As the shuttle passed through the atmospheric shield, Sarah noted how the energy field rippled. Another piece of data for the mesh network to analyze. Welcome aboard the glory of ascension, a translated voice echoed through the shuttle speakers. Please prepare for atmospheric adjustment and decontamination. Sarah and her team, carefully chosen scientists and military personnel disguised as diplomatic representatives, waited as the bay's atmosphere was adjusted to Earth standard. The hegemony's courtesy was just another way to demonstrate their technological superiority. They didn't realize they were giving Earth's team a perfect opportunity to deploy the first phase of their plan. As they stepped out of the shuttle, Sarah took in every detail of the massive bay. The architecture was organic, almost liquid in its flow, with technology so seamlessly integrated it seemed to grow from the walls themselves. Beautiful, but also revealing. The quantum sensors hidden in their ceremonial clothes were mapping every system, every power conduit. This way, please, a tall insectoid being gestured with multiple limbs. Admiral Zextal awaits you in the ascension chamber. As they were led through the ship's corridors, Sarah maintained the pretense of awe and submission expected of a primitive species. Inside, she was counting down. The quantum mesh was nearly complete, each step they took allowing them to position more inverters throughout the ship's dimensional structure. The ascension chamber turned out to be a vast hall, its walls displaying real-time views of Earth below. Admiral Zextal stood at its center, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting light in complex patterns. Sarah recognized the display for what it was, a sophisticated psychological tactic designed to emphasize the hegemony's power. Your world will be transformed, Zextal announced, his translated voice carrying artificial warmth. The process is painless, I assure you. Your species will achieve unity with the hegemony, your biological and technological distinctiveness, adding to our perfection. Sarah stepped forward, playing her role perfectly. We are honored by your acceptance, Admiral. Earth's people await their ascension with anticipation. We have even deactivated our defensive systems, as requested, to show our trust. Zextal's inner eyes pulsed with satisfaction. Very wise. Your species shows remarkable adaptability. It will serve the hegemony well. He turned to his subordinates. Begin the harvest sequence. Start with the larger population centers. That was the signal they'd been waiting for. As the hegemony ships began moving into position around Earth, Sarah felt the subtle vibration of her quantum communicator. Everything was ready. Admiral, she said, allowing herself to finally show her true confidence, there's something you should understand about human adaptability. Zextal turned, his inner eyes narrowing at her changed tone. But before he could respond, Sarah spoke a single word into her quantum communicator. Mirror. In that instant, every quantum inverter hidden throughout the hegemony fleet activated. The dimensional mesh snapped into place like a vast, invisible net, And for the first time in their long history of conquest, the hegemony found themselves trapped in a cage they couldn't even see. "What is this?" Zextal demanded as his ship's systems began reporting cascading failures. "What have you done?" Sarah watched as the massive view screens flickered and died, the ship's power systems caught in the quantum feedback loop. "We adapted," she said simply. "That's what humans do best." Throughout the hegemony fleet, ships began losing power as the dimensional mesh tightened. Their advanced technology, dependent on accessing multiple dimensions for its operation, found itself cut off from its own power sources. But this was just the beginning. The real battle was about to start, and humanity was no longer pretending to be prey. Turning the tide. Chaos erupted aboard the Glory of Ascension as systems failed in cascading waves. Admiral Zextal's crystalline exoskeleton flashed with patterns of rage and disbelief as he watched his mighty flagship transform into little more than a powerless hull floating in space. "Impossible!" he raged, multiple limbs working frantically at dead control surfaces. "Our technology is perfect. We have harvested 1,000 worlds." "That was your first mistake," Sarah Chen replied calmly, standing her ground as hegemony guards moved to surround her. "You thought technology alone made you invincible. You forgot that true advancement comes from understanding, not just power." Above Earth, the hegemony's vast fleet hung motionless, caught in humanity's dimensional mesh. But the human counterattack was just beginning. From their hidden positions throughout the solar system, Earth's real defense platforms emerged from their quantum camouflage. In the command center beneath the Atacama, James Kenzo watched the tactical display with intense focus. "Phase 2 initiating," he announced through the quantum network. "Belina, begin the dimensional inversion sequence." In her facility in Siberia, Dr. Elena Volkov's fingers danced across her control interface. The quantum inverters they'd planted throughout the hegemony fleet weren't just blocking access to higher dimensions. They were about to turn the aliens' own technology against them. "Inversion sequence active," Elena reported. "Dr. Rahman, your calculations better be right about this." In her lab in Pakistan, Aisha Rahman monitored the quantum fluctuations carefully. "The math is perfect," she replied. "Now we find out if the universe agrees with it." The effect began slowly at first, a subtle vibration through the trapped hegemony ships. Then, one by one, their mighty vessels began to transform. The organic-looking technology that they'd so proudly displayed started to crystallize, their own dimensional energy turning inward. On the Glory of Ascension's bridge, Zextal watched in horror as his ship's walls began to transmute. "What are you doing to us?" he demanded. "We're showing you what true adaptation looks like," Sarah explained, even as the guards around her began to panic. "Your technology depends on stealing energy from higher dimensions. We're not blocking that energy, we're reflecting it back. Everything you built to harvest us is being harvested." Throughout the fleet, the process accelerated. Ships that had threatened to convert Earth's population into biomass for the hegemony were themselves being converted, not into biological material, but into crystalline structures locked in normal spacetime. "Dr. Chen," James's voice came through Sarah's quantum link. "We're detecting massive energy buildups in their secondary systems. They're trying to overload their cores." Sarah had expected this. The hegemony would rather destroy themselves than face defeat, but humanity had prepared for this too. "Initiate Protocol Omega," she ordered. "Full-spectrum quantum capture." Across the solar system, the hidden platforms that had emerged shifted their focus. Instead of just containing the hegemony fleet, they began absorbing the massive energy being released by their desperate attempts at self-destruction. In orbit around Jupiter, Dr. Yuki Tanaka's team monitored the energy transfer. The quantum capacitors they'd built into the platforms were filling faster than expected, but holding. "Energy capture at 60%, Yuki reported. 70%. 80%. We're going to make it." The hegemony ship's attempt at suicide had given humanity exactly what they needed: enough power to complete the final phase of their plan. As the energy was captured and redirected, the crystallization process accelerated. On the flagship's bridge, Sarah watched as Admiral Zextal's mighty vessel transformed around them. The organic walls became transparent crystal, the advanced technology frozen in configurations that would take humanity decades to fully understand. "You could have chosen differently," she told the Admiral as his own exoskeleton began to crystallize. "You could have approached Earth in peace, offered true cooperation instead of conquest. We would have shared our understanding willingly." Understanding. Zextal's voice was fading as the crystallization reached his communication systems. "You were primitive. How did you achieve this?" "We learned from every civilization you destroyed," Sarah explained. "The remnant showed us the echoes of 1,000 worlds. Each one taught us something about your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. We didn't build better weapons. We built better knowledge." Throughout the solar system, the mighty Hegemony fleet hung in space like an array of crystal sculptures, their crews preserved but harmless within the transformed ships. Humanity had won not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding. In the Atacama Command Center, James watched the final energy readings stabilize. "All ships contained," he reported. "Crystallization process complete. No casualties on either side." That had been the most ambitious part of their plan. Finding a way to defeat the Hegemony without destroying them. Humanity had refused to become what they fought against. Instead of harvesting their enemies, they had preserved them, transforming their technology into something that could be studied, understood, and perhaps, one day, redeemed. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Sarah looked out through the crystalline walls of what had been the glory of ascension. Earth shone below, still safe, still free. But the real work was just beginning. The Hegemony's defeat would send shockwaves through the galaxy. Other species would come, some seeking revenge, others seeking alliance. Humanity would be ready. They had proven they could defend themselves, but more importantly, they had shown they could do it without losing their humanity in the process. A new dawn. 1 year after the Hegemony's defeat, the crystallized fleet had become a symbol visible from Earth's surface, a shimmering belt of transformed ships that served as both monument and reminder. But in a hidden facility beneath Geneva, Dr. Sarah Chen was focused on something far more significant than monuments. "The translation is complete," she announced to the assembled representatives of Earth's newly formed Stellar Defense Council. "We've finally decoded the full archive from the Hegemony's database." The holographic display showed thousands of worlds, each one a victim of the Hegemony's harvesting campaign. But more importantly, it showed hundreds more that had yet to be targeted, civilizations that still had a chance. "Many of these worlds are like we were," James Kenzo explained, highlighting several star systems. "Developing cultures on the verge of interstellar travel. The Hegemony was planning to harvest them within the next century. Then we warned them." General Rodriguez, now serving as Earth's first Stellar Defense Coordinator, stated firmly, "We show them what we've learned." But it wasn't that simple. The data had revealed something else, other predatory civilizations nearly as dangerous as the Hegemony. The galaxy was more complex and treacherous than anyone had imagined. "We need to be careful," Dr. Elena Volkov cautioned. "The Hegemony's defeat has created a power vacuum. Already, we're detecting increased activity from multiple advanced civilizations. Some see us as potential allies, others as a threat." She wasn't wrong. The quantum detection network they'd built had picked up numerous attempts to probe Earth's defenses. The crystallized Hegemony fleet served as a deterrent, but it wouldn't be enough forever. "Perhaps," Dr. Aisha Rahman suggested, "we should show them something different. Not just our ability to defend ourselves, but our ability to help others defend themselves." That was how the Stellar Coalition began. Starting with the nearest threatened worlds, Earth began sharing their understanding of quantum mechanics and dimensional physics. But they didn't just hand over technology. They taught the underlying principles, helped each civilization develop their own unique approaches. The first success came 6 months later. a world called Nexus Prime, targeted by another harvesting species called the Void Collective, successfully defended itself using a variation of Earth's quantum mesh technology. The would-be conquerors found themselves not crystallized, but trapped in a pocket dimension of Nexus Prime's own design. Each species brings its own perspective, Sarah explained during a coalition conference. The Nexans understood quantum mechanics in ways we never considered. The Auroran Alliance developed entirely new applications for dimensional engineering. We're not just teaching, we're learning too. The Remnant revealed themselves fully then, emerging from hiding in the spaces between dimensions. They had once been like the hegemony, they explained, until they discovered that true power came from understanding, not domination. They had spent millennia preparing for a species that could grasp this truth. Your victory over the hegemony was just the beginning, their representative told the coalition. The real challenge is maintaining your humanity while wielding power that could reshape the galaxy. They were right. As Earth's influence grew, so did the temptation to use their advanced understanding for dominance rather than defense. But the crystallized fleet served as a constant reminder of where that path led. Instead, humanity chose a different approach. The Stellar Coalition expanded not through force or coercion, but through mutual understanding and respect. Each new member brought unique insights, different ways of perceiving reality itself. The hegemony's crews, preserved in their crystalline ships, became a source of learning as well. Slowly, carefully, individual ships were decrystallized. Their crews, expecting execution, found instead an offer of rehabilitation and integration into a galaxy that had changed during their imprisonment. Some accepted, sharing insights into hegemony technology that helped protect against other threats. Others chose to remain in stasis, unwilling or unable to accept a universe where cooperation trumped conquest. 5 years after the hegemony's defeat, humanity had helped establish a network of free worlds spanning nearly a quarter of the galaxy. The quantum mesh technology had evolved into a communication system that allowed instant sharing of knowledge across vast distances. But more importantly, it allowed sharing of understanding. In her office in Geneva, now serving as the coalition's central coordination point, Sarah Chen received a message from a newly discovered civilization. They had detected the quantum network and were reaching out, not in fear or aggression, but in curiosity. "We see what you've built," their message read. "Not an empire, but a community. We would learn from you and teach what we know in return." Sarah smiled as she prepared the standard response. It was the same offer Earth had received from the Remnant, now passed forward. "Understanding is the greatest power in the universe. Let us share it together." The crystallized hegemony fleet continued its eternal orbit around Earth, its transformed ships catching and refracting sunlight. But it was no longer just a warning. It had become a promise that humanity would never stop learning, never stop understanding, and never forget that the greatest victories come not from destroying your enemies, but from transforming them into friends.